Good afternoon. The first ever afternoon episode of Turn Your Messaging into Magic. So we're testing all the things here. Anna Hetzel, who is my friend who we got to hang out with together in Mexico and realized that we had like way more in common than maybe should be humanly possible for anyone to have in common. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we share the same brain. That's up to debate. It's probably possible.
It's very possible because you say things and I'm like, yes.
And you say things and I'm like, I've always thought that.
And that's why we're friends. So we will be taking over the world together at some point, but
Haven't we already?
maybe already we're in the process. So Anna is an amazing copywriter, thinks insanely quickly, moves insanely quickly, faster than the speed of light, faster than a speeding bird. I don't know. Like we're going to get
American Falcon, 270 some miles an hour. Let's go. Why do I know this? Don't ask.
So, and you have Strange Birds copywriting. Do you want to talk about the development of Strange Birds? Because I think that story is fascinating.
Sure. So yeah, quick background. My company is called Strange Birds. As of the first 6.5 years, it's been just me. So Strange Bird, singular. And I specialize in website copywriting and brand messaging strategy. The long-term goal has always been to turn this into a creative co-op. So next week, I am announcing my good friend who's coming along for the ride. So now Strange Birds is finally truly plural and not just the royal we.
We shall. It's like, when I tell Clark, I'm like, we should do this. He's like, you mean me? And I'm like, so it's the opposite, I guess, of the royal we, but we shall.
Yes. We all have those moments with our friends and partners of like, we should do this. And I'm like, 90% of that activity is me, but yes, we should.
Yes, that sounds great. We will get right on that. And so at Strange Birds, you work, so much of who we work with is very similar, but in your words, like, who do you like to work with? What do you like to do most?
So I like to not necessarily talk about who, but when people work with me, because that works a little bit better. I work with a lot of people. Typically, they're service providers. Sometimes they're SaaS companies. Sometimes they're in the tech world. Sometimes they're not. But the critical piece is when. So when they're hitting whatever brick wall, glass ceiling, insert architectural object in front of you, that's when I'm typically brought on. So brink of expansion, you're pushing past some level of growth, whether it's you're in your second year of business and you're like, wow, I'm ready to finally get my shit together. Or your 10th year of business and you're like, I would like to hire more people, but should probably have a brand that doesn't just live in my head. Or like 20 years of business where you go, okay, we have an audience. We should probably hit more markets because things just got really competitive. So,
yeah. Or I've been doing this thing and it works really well and nothing about my branding actually speaks to this thing that I do. So, yeah.
Also that.
Yeah. Yep. And so you're also living in the Midwest. You have also like so many things parallel each other here. So I'm like, and you have also done this, you know. So how did you get here? What did that path look like for you?
How did I?
Maybe not to the Midwest per se, but how did you get to here, to this space in the online business world, to owning your own business as a copywriter?
Yeah, so I worked in a lot of bakeries and then got really tired. And I don't know if you knew this about me. I worked in a lot of bakeries. Joke, I'm gluten-free now. And got really tired and then got hired on as a translator for a startup that was based in Barcelona. And I worked remote here in Ohio. Day 2, they were like, hey, do a social media audit. This was only like 8 or 9 years ago. And I still had a flip phone. I had no idea what the Twitter was. I just bleeped myself. Yes. And definitely didn't have Instagram because I had a flip phone. And they were like, social media audit? You're a millennial. You do this. And I went, okay. And then they hired me full time to do their social media.
What is Instagram?
Yeah. No, I literally did that. I am a Luddite. And then they hired me full time to do their social media. Potentially poor business decision on their end. Great for me because I just got to learn on the job. And you mentioned this earlier. I do think really fast. So I onboarded myself extremely fast. And it just was a whole year of learning what digital marketing is and really diving into it and like getting really nerdy and generating my own reports of like, this is how I've done. This is what I'm going to do next month and week. And my boss is being like, cool.
And you just like, I want to like call this out because you do this and you're like, oh, I just did this thing. And it's like, that's not what the average person would do. They'd be like, I did some stuff. I think it's cool. And you did this report and you got into the numbers and all the things and the planning. And I think that speaks to part of what you bring is that like, how can I make this better?
Well, it's in that situation, it was not necessarily how can I make it better? It's how can I prove that I'm doing anything? Because there was also a huge part of me going, I don't know what I'm doing. I should probably have a way to track something. So I feel better that I'm doing something and not just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and being like, oh, that didn't stick. Oops.
And I feel like that was social media marketing like 10 years
That is social media marketing now.
Well, still. Okay. True.
I do not do that anymore. So no one DM me for help with social media marketing. As soon as I left that job, went into corporate, when I quit corporate to start Strange Birds, number one thing that I slashed off my list of things I would ever do was social media marketing.
Mm-hmm. Same.
It's exhausting. It's not for me.
There's so much to it. And like, I'll even help people that I know and love sometimes with strategy. Like, here's what you should do. This is not where I'm going to help. So
it's also a lot of social media marketing, at least when I was still in it. Again, this is now 7-8 years ago at this point. It's a lot of customer service. Yes, you're doing social media marketing, but you're really doing customer service. And you have to kind of split your brain into both of those things at the same time. And that was a brain splitting that I just was not into. Either I wanted to do customer service all the time because I did work in the restaurant industry for a really long time. So I get customer service, but I can't do both marketing and customer service. My brain was like,
but you said you don't want to do that kind of brain splitting anymore. But that leads me to believe that you do like to do some brain splitting. So, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I
love splitting my brain
really, really well. So what are some of your favorite things, whether they divide up your brain or not?
I'm a huge nerd. And so the first thing I did when I got this social media marketing gig at this Barcelona startup was start generating reports and looking at numbers. The first thing that interests me when I work with clients is like, okay, this is what you do, but like, what actually does that mean? Like you have all these, because I work with a lot of service providers, it's like, great, this is the service that you're most excited about. It's at this price point. How does it work with all of your other services? If it's at this price point, but then you have this other service that's slightly less money, but actually takes you more work. Like how can we position these better? Mm-hmm. So they not only make sense for you as the person delivering it, but it also probably makes a lot more sense to your audience as well. Mm-hmm. And so I really I don't like puzzles, actually doing puzzles. So I'm going to like use a Lego analogy because I like Legos more. It's like looking at Legos and going, great, I can figure out how to build a thing versus, let's be real, a lot of companies just like have a bunch of blocks and they're like pretty colors. I think built. Yeah, I think a lot of brand messaging and website copywriting is taking all of those beautiful pieces and constructing them in a way that is more readily readable to someone else who didn't just walk in the room and go, what's that? Like you want them to walk in the room and go, wow, what a cool rocket ship you built. That's awesome.
And not only did you build it, but you're going to take me somewhere. Because I think that's something that's so common too, is people are like, this is what I do. And their customers come out and they're like, cool. But what does that like mean for me?
Mhm.
And so it's not, I think it's really awesome that you do that from both sides, not just making it make sense from to me, the business owner, but to me, your client. Well, I can't be
Yeah.
both mice anyway.
Well,
That's
it
not a
goes
great
back
analogy
to
on my part.
it goes back to like when you ask who do I work with and it's more win. Another win of when people hire me is the questions that they're getting on sales calls are, like feel really basic. You know, like the questions they're getting is like, but what is copywriting? Like if someone was trying to hire me, that means my marketing is doing a shit job. Like something is being missed here that needs to be better explained, better positioned. So when they get people on calls or they get people filling out forms, there isn't such a wide bridge to cross. Because if you're spending most of your time on sales calls or most of your times in pitches or in welcome sequences and emails or in customer service threads, like answering what feels like very basic questions, something is missing there. And it's not that like, oh, they just don't get it. That's on us to make sure that they get it.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. And if you're getting messages asked, I mean, everyone's going to get messages who ask them to do something legal at some point if you're a copywriter. But as long as it's the exception to the rule, like, I mean, I think there's always exceptions, but
Yeah.
the
But
knife can.
if like most of your questions are like, oh, people just don't get it, and that's your response, something's missing.
Right. And it's on you. Whether it should be or not, it's on you, the business owner, to fix. Okay. So when we first decided to do this, you were like, I just wanted to have nerdy conversations about brand messaging. So what about brand messaging? So we didn't really fully talk to how you got here in Strange Birds because we got really into the bakery and the social media conversation. So like what happened next? How did you get from social media? We know how you got from bakery to social media, but how did you get from social media to brand messaging?
So after I worked for the Spanish startup for a year, I worked at a couple agencies in town. I worked in-house and then I went basically back to the food industry, but on the corporate side of things, I did digital marketing for a breakfast restaurant franchise. Did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. And it was one summer, my partner and I were on vacation, and I was talking about like, my job, I love my job. And she was like, you don't like your job. You like the people you work with. You don't like your job. And I was like, crap. I really don't like my job. And I immediately flashed back to what it was like to work remote for a whole year for the company in Spain. And I am a very self-motivated person. And I was like, I now have enough skills. I could probably do this on my own. So I made a giant list of all the things that I could do and then organize it into 3 columns. Column 1 was absolutely never again, not today, Satan. Column 2 was I would do this if you paid me a lot of money. And then column 3 was I absolutely love doing this. When I looked at column 3, I was like, I think I'm a copywriter. Wait, what's copywriting? Yeah, which is if you ask any copywriter how they got to where they are, it's some version of that story of like, oh, I guess I'm a copywriter. What is that?
So yeah, like I got here after like 15 years of marketing and not knowing that what I did the whole time was copywriting.
Yes.
And so I was like, I need a copywriter to review this. And I just like decided I was going to go out my own as a virtual assistant at that point. And I was like, hey, I can look at it. And I was like, oh, I have something to share here. I guess that's what I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. And like, I don't know if your family understands what it is you do. Mine does not.
No, I write stuff for money is the basics.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was told that I am like a resume writer for businesses.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
It's not, but it was just like, I'm going to walk away from that. So you're a copywriter. So now you're a copywriter in this is what I am. I didn't know it was a thing. Here I am doing it though.
Yeah.
What did you write at that point? What did you write? Did
I
you know?
did pretty much everything but social media. And right out of the gate, I was doing brand messaging projects, but I don't think I really knew that they were brand messaging projects. Cause like I have a systems brain. So clients would come to me and be like, mess. And I'd be like, oh, I clean it. And I would like put things into systems like, this is what you talk about. This is because that it also comes a little bit of that social media marketing of like, here's the themes that you have. Like, here's how to stay consistent. Here's how to stay on brand. Like, here's the parameters of what's going on. That's a big chunk of brand messaging. I mean, brand messaging is like, I like to connect it to a brand logo and word mark, right? Brand
Mhm.
logo and word mark, that is the visual representation of your brand. You have your brand logo, you have your brand colors, like it all looks the same. Your brand messaging is the word side of that coin. It all sounds the same. It all tells the same story. It uses the same tagline and one-liners, and all of it is connected. It's not just like we use these basic ideas and would throw it out in the world, right? Like that's going to confuse people. You can have fun in certain ways, but like at the end of the day, it's still got to be pretty tight, especially with some of the clients that we work with. Like if they just kind of like took the core idea and then just felt like zhuzhing it up every single time they said it, chaos.
Right. I always think of brand messaging as a lens for everything that you're doing, not just in how you talk about things, but like how you consistently share them. So, I mean,
Yeah. It's like,
verbally, in writing, even in visuals.
yeah, it's like you I mean, probably a lot of people watching this use Canva. No shame, right? I use Canva. Canva, I have my brand colors and my logo and like brand assets saved in there. I got templates in Canva that keep my imagery on brand. That's what brand messaging is. It's your templates to keep your messaging and all of your content on brand.
Yeah.
It's just a little harder to do because you can't just like put a hex code in and be like, now it's all the same color. Like it takes some editing.
Here are the common
Yes.
themes.
Not to discount graphic design. That
No.
takes a hell of a lot of work. Graphic designers are always worth the more money than like just buying a pro plan on Canva. I work with a lot of graphic
Absolutely.
designers. Um, it's like it's both and. It's really
Right.
easy to prioritize brand identity over brand messaging because looks are way sexier than words. However, the two together,
Two sides of the same coin. Yes.
yes,
Yes. Well,
two
it's
wings of the same
interesting.
bird, to
Like a
use a
lot of the
bird.
times, do you do brand strategy too as part of it?
How would you define brand
So I think
strategy?
of brand strategy as like the baseline package, package because I'm thinking in packages, but it's the baseline information that you use about who you want to be in the world. So from that, brand messaging can come, from that brand identity, like visual branding can come. And I know it's interesting. A lot of people who've been through brand strategy with me can then take that directly to their designer and get something that they love, and vice versa. A lot of the times, what the designer does, I mean, we all have different questions that we
Yeah.
ask, but
Do you, when you deliver brand strategy, this is why I'm at, we all use like different words and think of different things, because this industry is, we really like our jargon.
we
Uh,
do. Oh my gosh. And I
so,
don't even realize I'm doing it until someone's
yeah.
like,
So
oh,
when
you
you say
have
brand strategy, are you saying things like your vision, your mission, your values? Is that what you mean?
that tends to be it, but it's even more than that. It's like, who do you want to be? It's like the base level of like a brand messaging package. Like I think of brand messaging as going deeper, going more
Mhm.
in depth, um, into the messaging, into what you say at each phase based on what people are telling you, what you're hearing from them, so that you have some consistent responses that effectively communicate what you do. That to me is more brand messaging. And then brand strategy is more about figuring out who you want to be in the world, so that your brand messaging speaks to that, so that your visual brand speaks to that. It's kind
So
of like,
like who are your stakeholders? What's your voice? How does tone of voice work? What's the difference between voice and tone? My favorite little lesson to give people. Um,
and sometimes the brand strategy is enough to get started. Sometimes you need a full like deep dive, and it just
mm,
depends who you are, where you're at. But
Yeah.
I want you to share your lesson on voice versus tone, because it's always so much fun to hear you say it.
Have you heard me say it before?
I have. I believe there were margaritas in Mexico involved, so I don't know exactly how you say it.
Well, I don't remember this. So how many margaritas were we in? There were so many conversations that happened there that were just so good. That was the best experience. Okay. So voice and tone, the common phrase that all of us know is tone of voice. Like, don't use that tone of voice with me, said every parent everywhere. Said every kid to every parent everywhere, right? It goes both ways.
You can't talk to me like that.
Yeah. So voice is the core, right? In every single room that I walk into, I am always Anna. Depending on what room I'm walking into is like what version of Anna is showing up that day. So right now I'm in like business Anna tone of voice, but I'm still, my voice is still Anna. My tone is business light because business casual. I don't know.
You're not corporate is what we're saying.
Not corporate. I am, honestly, there is no Anna corporate. Does not exist. I try and fail, so I stopped trying. Because at the end of the day, I found everyone wants to have a little bit more fun, so why not make the space for it? Then imagine, you got to see like friend Anna at the retreat, right? It's a very different, relaxed space that different stories come out, right? Different ways of telling stories happen, different ways of even just like moving through the world, right? I'm really different around my group of weird friends than I am around my clients. It would like be almost inappropriate for me to be friend Anna to my clients.
I don't know. Like, I think it depends on the client too. It depends on how.
As someone who really loves boundaries, my clients are my clients.
Boundaries.
I treat them with the utmost respect, high levels of communication, active listening. Sometimes they are my friends, but there's always a lot.
Side of the work is different, and I hear you there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So tone and voice, two different things. You can have tones of voice, but you cannot have voices of tone. It doesn't go backwards, and it's like one direction. Train only leaves one way.
Train only leaves one way. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking back at what we talked about earlier. And so whenever I do these, and I've told you this kind of off camera, but for anyone who is watching offline, it's like, what is she looking at? What is she looking at on her other screen? I always have like notes so that when we end up going off on a tangent like margaritas in Mexico, we have something to like kind of draw us back.
I can't believe we went on a tangent. That's so unlike us.
Shocking, absolutely shocking. So now that you are most heavily focused on brand messaging, what are some of the other things you're doing at Strange Birds?
So I would say it's split 50-50 between brand messaging and website copywriting, because there's nothing more that I love than working on a client's brand messaging and then writing their website. Because brand messaging is, if you ever do a brand messaging project, like you hire someone to do a brand messaging project, I promise you it's going to be the hardest piece of content you will ever review. Ever. Because it's not implemented anywhere. Like you can see it, but like it's not live. It's not in the world. You can't like see it interacting with other stuff. So what I love is like taking that and going, great, here's your website. Here is this brand messaging, this foundational piece that we created out in the world, and like really putting it into action, because it's the best, for me, it's the best teaching tool of how to really use the brand messaging to its greatest extent. Because a website is, so like brand messaging is your storytelling system. A website is your sales system. A website should reflect how you sell.
And so then in many ways, they're very different, and it's different types of language, but it's that same tone that you've set.
Right. To kind of make the connection of like, hey, remember when we talked about this idea in the brand messaging and like this core phrase? It's here, but written slightly different to fit this like structure here, to kind of show like at the core, we're saying these same things, but like it has to, just like sometimes your brand colors are like a little bit more opaque or transparent based on like
Where
things
you're using them, where they
where you're
appear, what words are in front of them,
exactly.
what images go with them. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your favorite like aha moment that clients have? Like it can be like not a single one. I think it's really I can like drop some ideas if you're thinking hard here because I'm totally putting you on the spot. But
It's different every project. Every client's going to have a different aha moment. Sometimes it happens in the research phase where they look at all the research that I gathered because I interview clients, we do surveys, and it could be, it's weird we're still getting this question, or it's weird that they still don't know that we offer this really key cornerstone service of ours. This is a big missed opportunity. That happens more often than you think.
so much. You haven't talked about that in a while. I didn't realize you still did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Or
favorite
they
one.
hire another firm to go do a thing that they could have hired them for and had it all under one roof and had it been easier. Things like that.
My favorite with brand messaging, just to like, is the first round because the first one very often reflects what they're saying. What they say matters. What's putting it out into the world, and then they look at it and they say that is exactly what we thought we were going for. Now that I see it, that's not us at all. And it's so funny because it's like it's this process, and it's like the first couple ones that I did, I was like, am I terrible at this? And then like after like 2 or 3 years in, it was like, no, every single project has this existential moment where it's like, who we are is not exactly who we thought we were. And
Yep.
that's really interesting. The direction that we're going is a little bit different. And it takes seeing it reflected back to them. And then version 2 is almost always like 99% there.
Yeah. I actually had a project earlier this year where we did a ton of research. I checked in on them. I was like, this is the direction I'm going in the brand messaging. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Like, here we go. Submitted it. And they went, oh no. Oh no. Is it bad that we don't like any of it? And I was like, no, it's really normal. But I do want you to know that everything in here is what you told me. And they went, oh, okay, we have some work to do. And I'm like, this is true. This is part of this process.
Well, I think part of the job too is to push people.
Yeah.
And to say, okay, so what do you want to be? What is your deepest aspiration?
Mhm.
And then that first round of brand messaging probably reflects a little bit of that aspiration. And they might be like, yes, we love it, but that's not where we are today.
Yeah.
So it's always fun to see. Like it's always fun to.
And it could
I sit back and I laugh.
And it could feel like, oh my gosh, I just paid you to do this whole thing and like we have to change it. And it's like, no, this is a recognized part of this process of like if I hired you, Erin, to do my brand messaging, I promise you whatever you submitted to me first, I'd be like, oh God.
Absolutely.
This is really well written. However,
this is not who I am.
Because if anyone has gone through an editing process, the hardest thing is the blank page. The minute you put words in front of you, you're going to have feelings and thoughts. And so part of being a brand messaging strategist and writer is having a really thick skin of understanding that like they're going from a blank page. Pretty much all of our clients are going from a totally blank page, but don't realize they're coming from a blank page to all of a sudden having words in front of them and going, oh, this is how we're coming across. Okay. And
my it doesn't matter how many times you explain that process.
Yeah.
They're still like, we're the best at communicating this. We know our stuff. It's so
my favorite thing is like I do live reviews for the first round because usually a lot of questions come up and it's just easier to do that live. It usually comes down to one word in the messaging document where I'm like, so what I'm hearing is this, blah, 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 blah. Is it possible that it's just this word right here? What if I change it to this word? And then they go, oh my God.
Isn't that funny? Like one word
can change a whole vibe.
I find that, I mean, a long time ago, I was working with a client who was a government contracting accounting firm. And she would look at what I'd write for her and she'd be like, this is all wrong. Let's hop on a call. And I'd go into it sweating bullets. Like, what did I miss? And it would really be one word, but it's so funny how you cannot see past that when it's such an important word to you. And to me, just like you, it's like, here's an easy switch.
Yep.
And it would be like, just about every project, it would be like, this is all wrong. I'm like, oh no. And then I just learned, it's like, it's not all wrong.
Yeah, I just had that with, I just wrapped a brand messaging project where they were like, something's off here. And we talked for like a good 30 minutes. And then I finally realized, so what I'm hearing is this one piece needs to be pushed a little bit higher, like in terms of emphasis. And I'm pretty sure I added the word more in front of it. And they went, oh, and I was like, there we go. Emphasis added. How's this feel now? And they're like, oh, wow. And then like the rest of their revisions were like, so small.
So funny. So funny. So you talked about live reviews. You're one of the only other people I know that loves live reviews as much as I do. What's your process look like for that?
It depends. So with brand messaging, I try to send it over at least a day before so they have time to read it. So they can come with questions. But when we start the call, I make sure that the expectation is set of like, we're not finishing this in this call. Like the goal of this call is for me to hear their gut reactions. Because if they start like super editing their gut reactions or trying to make me feel better about it, I'm actually going to do a more poor job for them. So like setting the expectation of like, I need your gut reactions. I do this all the time. Do not care about my feelings. Like I need to hear what's going on, because if you don't tell me how you're feeling and what you're reacting to, I can't fix it in the way that's going to make the most sense. And so really diving into that. And it's a lot of active listening. So the basic active listening thing of like someone tells you something, and sometimes as a creative professional in your brain, you're like, wow, they're rambling. Holy crap. But then at the end, your job is to say, okay, so let me rephrase that. What I'm hearing you say is that there is something missing in this section here that you would like to see emphasize a little bit more. Yes or no? Yes. Great. Okay. So here's a couple ways that we can do that.
Yep.
And we do it there. If I don't have a solution readily available, I'll just literally make a comment in the document and be like, great, this is something really important that I would like to think on. I'm going to make a comment just to like remind myself that this is what we talked about. And I'm going to do that offline. It's just an acknowledgement that they've been heard.
Yeah.
Just want to be heard. Like everyone wants to be heard.
Well, and I think it's not even that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's not just that. It's also, I think that they know something's not right, but they have to externally process it and talk it out with someone who they view as separate from them. Like if it's their team, they're like almost a version of the same person. But if it's you or me, it's someone who is like the third party factor. They need to talk it out with a neutral third party.
I mean, that's why people hire us.
Yeah.
And that's why we hire each other. I mean, I'm in the process of rewriting my whole damn website. And there's no way I would have anything that I would feel worthy to ship if I didn't have my copywriter crew that I could just drop the link and be like, please give me feedback.
What do you think about this? Yeah.
Like, does this make sense? Are there too many bird puns? Wait, don't ask that question. The answer is always no. There's not enough.
There's never enough bird puns. Sometimes we move one to a slightly different section, but we replace it with something else. Oh, well, I love it. And your feedback, I mean, on that note, your feedback is like always incredible. I am always like, Anna, will you look at my thing? Please say yes. Because you have such good input. And you do it like that, which I love. So
I think it's also the case of like, I didn't write this.
No ego here.
So even when I'm working on my clients' work, so this is a great example. I was working on a day sprint. So I call them flights. So I was working on a day flight with a client, and I was rewriting her homepage. And she's a photographer and specializes in photographing families. And there was just a couple sections that I was like, I feel really good about this. However, I do not have kids. I don't plan on having kids. So like I think it's good, but I kind of need people with kids to read this. Like, does this make sense to you? And so I sent it to a couple of my friends that have young kids, which is who she was targeting. And just getting their feedback of like, yes, however, you didn't think about this, which is like something that I feel like only parents would know. And I'm like, oh, this is really good knowledge. Thank you.
There's
um,
so much about kids that no one tells you. Like, and then you have to find out for yourself. And it was like, why didn't anyone tell me about this?
or just like the stress of like getting ready for a photography session with a like a newborn baby and a toddler. Like, how do you do that? Like, what reassurances would you need? You know. So I always, whenever possible, get feedback before I submit it to a client because the more eyes, the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you offer that as a service too, to get your eyes on things. Do you want to talk about Bird's Eye View?
Yeah, it's it had to be a bird pun name. So Bird's Eye Review.
Bird's Eye Review, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Bird's Eye View, Bird's Eye Review. That's just, they're basically the same thing. I put the in parentheses, and then as soon as I launched the product, I instantly regretted that because every time I have to write it, I have to put the in parentheses, and I'm like, this takes so much work to type. But it's so cool.
Parentheses do not work with my high-speed brain.
No, I have to like do a shift and then anyway. Yeah, Bird's Eye Review is asynchronous, so you don't have to schedule a call with me. You can grab one anytime. You fill out a form, submit your work. It can either be a live web page, it can be a Google Doc, it can be a PDF. People have sent me in a bajillion different forms, but basically it's your chance to get somebody else's eyes on your work before you hit launch or before you go deep into the editing phase. And my personal opinion, the best time to ask for feedback is when you're just past the shitty draft phase. You've got some words down on the page, you've started sort of editing it. It's not just bullet points. Like, don't send me your notes. I'm not going to be a lot of help if you just send me notes. I can give you some strategic pointers, but if you want copy review,
you should have some copy.
Have some copy. But the reason why I say just past shitty draft phase is you're probably not super emotionally attached to it yet. And if there's going to be some points of like, this whole section, actually, this needs to be higher, there isn't going to be as much of a, but I'm really attached to it where it is. It like works within the flow of the story. That's the best, again, going back to like when people hire me, that's the best time to get that reviewed is before you have spent hours moving commas around.
And you feel like all these things are your little darlings and you're,
right.
Yeah.
Before you get to the little darlings phase, that's when you should send it in. Yeah.
And so it's a little darling, highlight it.
Yeah. Like I really love this line. And probably if you really love the line, I'm going to recommend that it's your H1 tag because it's probably great and it probably shouldn't be buried somewhere. But yeah, it's a 10 minutes. I do an in-depth review. I record a Loom video, and then I also send you a screenshot of all of my notes. And it's one of my most favorite things I do. I just started them a couple months ago, and I'm like, why have I not done this sooner? I love giving feedback. And if you just have, yeah, and if you do just have a bullet point list of notes and you want some strategic feedback, you can use it for that as well, with the understanding that I'm not going to give you copy feedback. It's going to be like strategy.
So where can people go to learn more about you, to get a Bird's Eye Review, to, that's really harder to say, review. It's a bird, I don't know why. But to schedule a Bird's Eye Review with you, to hop on your mailing list, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah. So strangebirds.land is where you can find me. You can get on my mailing list there. I'm going to drop, so because the Bird's Eye Review is new, it's not actually on my website yet because I'm in the process of rewriting my website. So it's not there yet, but Erin, I just dropped it in the private chat. If you can like add it to this live stream, that'd be great.
Yes.
It's with my new favorite. I built it with my new favorite form builder, which is like so nerdy, but it's such a thing that like researchers and brand messaging strategists and copywriters love. We love survey forms. This one is so nice.
I'm going to pop it. Oh, so I'm going to pop it into the comments here. It does not push to every single. Oh, I have a banner. This is an example of a banner. Okay. We're going to hide that.
It's like kind of a messy URL because so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll pop it in the comments and then we'll also pop it into the descriptions. So that because it shows up on Facebook, it shows up on YouTube, but where it does not show up, it's on the comments is LinkedIn. So I will add it back into those comments.
And I am a firm believer of shipping things before they're 100%. So like, yeah, I'm aware that this URL is messy as hell. However, this is a brand new product as of like a month and a half ago. I'm not going to like bend over backwards to build a whole landing page for something that is still new. So I'm a really big believer of like, you're going to test, you're going to iterate, you're going to make it better. And then once it's been around for my timeline is like at least 2 to 3 months, then it gets full treatment.
Sometimes I throw things onto a page on my website, but yeah, it's not full treatment.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think this is true even if you're testing out an idea, if you have a product, if you have a service, the worst thing to do is spend weeks writing the copy, building out the landing page, doing all this launch stuff, and then like finding out no one actually wants it. Like that sucks. It hurts. It's like, it makes you feel like you're a total failure. And I've done this before. And I'm like, never again will I do this. I'm going to soft launch everything.
It's so much fun. It's fun and it's easy and it gives you the space to test things.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, the way my brain works, which is I think the way your brain works too, is it's easier to get and stay excited if you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this today and let's see what happens.
Yeah, like Bird's Eye Review, I offered just to my email list, I think in the month of June for like $10, which is like super underpriced. With the caveat of like, this is a new idea. Like I would love for y'all to get one so I can test it out and figure out like, am I asking the right questions? Like, is this functionality working? Gather their feedback. And from there, that's when it was determined, okay, this is what the actual price should and needs to be. And the price is $49. And it's been tested based on like the type of feedback that I give back, how quickly it's given, like how easy it is to put, like all of these things. Like this is not just like me throwing a number at the wall. Like this is researched. And that makes me feel way more confident going out and pushing it, because I'm like, I didn't just like pull this number out of my butt, right? Like I tested it. And just like a general lesson for service providers, like if you feel like you're just pulling numbers out of your butt or out of the clouds or whatever, wherever you're pulling numbers from, you're gonna feel weird selling it, because there's not going to be this like base level confidence of like, this number is correct.
Yeah.
Like this is not just feels good. This number is correct. Just test your idea.
Throw it out there. See what happens.
Throw it out there. Make it like just give it to 2 people for free and get their feedback. Like, I don't know. Like do it at a really super low cost like I did, just to be like, so what do you think? Like, would you pay this much for it? Would you pay this much for it? Like, what's the best part about this? What do you wish I did more of? How about this part? Like the 12 people that grabbed one in June, I asked them so many freaking questions.
And they were happy to answer them for $10 and all the advice you gave them. Yeah.
I had someone come back a month later and was like, I've been thinking about this for a while. And like, here's my thoughts now. And I'm like, wow, that's the best feedback I've ever gotten. Fantastic. And it helped me figure out how to pitch it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming today, Anna. Like, I feel like, well, I know we could talk for like days, given the opportunity. We have talked for days.
We have talked for days.
But we do have to like cut this off at some point. So thank you again. Let's do this again. We can always talk about more on offer development, offer launching. I feel like that would be a lot of fun. And there's our next topic. So
Well, or like the people watching this can vote. Like, what do you, out of the things that we talked about, what did you wish we talked more about and dove more into? And our squirrel brains did not get distracted by the next shiny thing. What shiny thing do you want us to focus on?
Yes. Tell us more, and then we'll talk about it next. So cool. All right. Thank you. And I will see you everywhere we hang out.
It's like, we should have like a Midwest. All right. We'll talk about this offline.
Yes. Coming soon.